ready for another tour around the continent. Welcome to this week's episode of Echo Africa. We will be traveling together from Uganda over to Tanzania, Nigeria, Burundi to Ghana. So put your Echo seatbelts on, sit back and enjoy. My name is Malama Mukonde in Lusaka, Zambia.
And I am Chris Illems. Greetings from Lagos, Nigeria. Here's what we have prepared for you this week. An innovative way of purifying groundwater in Uganda. The growing popularity of sack farming in Nigeria. Why communities in Burundi are embracing bird protection. Water is life. Humans can survive several days or in extreme cases, also weeks without food. But even a single day without water can pose a critical risk to our health. And millions of people fall ill because their drinking water is contaminated. Children are especially vulnerable. Let's meet a man in Uganda who is doing everything to ensure that schools have clean water.
Working underground is no ordinary job. But for well diggers in Uganda, it's part of daily life as they search beneath the earth for safe water.
I started digging wells in 2017. It's my main livelihood and the only way I'm able to provide for my family.
Whether produced from hand-dug wells, piped springs or high-tech pumping systems, groundwater sustains billions of people worldwide every day. But water drawn from beneath the earth's surface is not always safe. At a public school in Intungamo district in western Uganda, the water became a serious problem. The community relied on a single borehole, but it produced contaminated water.
It was not good because it turned the color of our food, and even the smell was not good. So the water was not good for consumption.
Worried about the health of the students, the head teacher reported the issue to authorities. The government asked private consultant Julius Musimenta to investigate. Tests showed very high levels of iron in the water, making it unsafe to drink.
Preliminary reports indicated iron concentration of about 1 milligrams per liter, but this appears to be much higher than 10 milligrams per liter.
Too much iron, heavy metals, or substances like arsenic in water are a serious health risk. Hydrologist Ambrose Mubyaliwo explains why.
Arsenic, even when it is to a lower concentration, so long as it goes beyond what the World Health Organization permits, it can actually cause these chronic diseases like cancer.
But it's possible to filter a lot of substances from the water, making it safe to drink. At his workshop in Kampala, Julius Musmenta constructed a filtration system to do just that. One unit has been installed at Itojo Boys School at a cost of about $30,000. The solar-powered system can filter enough water to serve 1,500 households.
The water is very clear. We are just going to follow it up with lab tests to confirm the performance, which we know is supposed to be very good.
Even before the lab results are out, the school is hopeful.
So now you don't have any smell in the water.
But groundwater is only part of the challenge. In Kampala, attention is also on surface water. Lake Victoria is not only Uganda's largest source of fresh water. At 66,000 square kilometers, it is the second largest lake in the world by area. It supports more than 40 million people in East Africa and is one of the main sources of the River Nile, sustaining ecosystems from the tropical wetlands to the desert. But there's something foul in the air.
Recently I went to the lake and you find the water, it has a lot of algae growth. Algae basically had grown on the lake and it was green. The water was green, which is meant supposed to be blue.
Alongside climate change, experts point to pollution from homes and industry as a key driver of the water contamination in the lake. Streams carrying untreated wastewater flow directly into it. In some areas, the smell is very strong.
So we need to identify these sources and treat the water to discharge standards.
Such freshwater pollution is forcing water suppliers to look further away for clean water sources, which also pushes up bills. Julius Musimenta says more sewage treatment plants would protect freshwater sources like the lake, as well as groundwater. He's developed a wastewater recycling system for homes. Waste used in a bathroom passes through pipes where solid waste is separated. The water is then pumped into a clarifier, filtered through and disinfected using ultraviolet light. After about 72 hours of treatment, the wastewater becomes clear again, ready for reuse in toilets, for irrigation, or to be safely discharged in nature.
In this scenario, instead of emptying, you have this water quality, which is not a nuisance. Nobody is complaining. It is being used. You are making a saving. And when you discharge it, if you don't want to use it because of mindset, into the storm drain, nobody complains.
The solid waste is broken down by its own bacteria and microorganisms. After some time, the sludge can be extracted and be used as fertilizer on farms.
This is a circular economy. We get waste and reuse, and we are recycling, and even the solids are being sold. You can sell them to those that have farms, and you only sell it because it will be dried and it will not be capable of contaminating whoever will be handling it.
According to UN Water, more than 40% of household wastewater worldwide is released into the environment without proper treatment. In Africa, that figure is estimated at 80 to 90%, which is a huge environmental problem and a major public health issue. In Uganda, 3 in 4 diseases are related to a lack of access to safe water and sanitation. People like Julius Musimenta are working at all levels to provide safe water access and wastewater systems to as many people as possible. With currently existing technology, human lives and the environment can be protected by something as simple as a toilet flush. And if enough such systems can be installed long term, then well diggers can be more likely to find clean water deep underground again.
It's particularly fascinating to see how Africa's largest lake is choked, yet it supports over 40 million livelihoods here in Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania. But it's also equally fascinating to see how one man's idea can help reverse the damage. It's a daily reminder of how our life choices can either break the ecosystems or sustain them for generations to come.
Good to see that this school has clean water now, because without access to clean water, we are exposed to many parasites like whipworms. Now, these tiny creatures can live in our colon and make us sick. But for some 20 years now, there have been effective drugs against these worms on the market, supposedly. Our next report takes a deep dive into a story that shows what makes the pharmaceutical industry tick.
On this small island off the coast of Tanzania, an experiment is underway that could transform hundreds of millions of lives. Researchers are trialling a new drug to get rid of these little guys. Dogs and cats have had access to the anti-parasitic being tested for 20 years. It's long shown potential for humans.
I've never seen such an active drug in our lab.
So why has it only been restricted to pets? And what does all this have to do with this Japanese plant? About 500 million people around the world are infected with whipworms at any given moment. Here on Pemba Island, most residents have had them at one point. They get bloody diarrhea, nausea, and in extreme cases, the infection can even stunt children's growth.
Is sometimes called poverty disease.
This is Saeed Mohammed Ali, the local coordinator of the trial.
In most areas of this island, there are still an issue of lifestyle, which include the lack of the use of latrines and toilets. You know, children are playing in the bush, they are playing on the soil, they defecate openly sometime, and the transmission happens from there because they ingest these eggs or these swarms.
Saeed Mohammed Ali was already supposed to be retired but couldn't pass up this project. He's coordinating a team testing if a drug called emidepside could help. For this, the scientists analysed participants' stool samples for worm eggs in the beginning of the trial, and then again after they've taken the drug. Over 7,000 kilometres away at the Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute in Basel, we meet the woman whose research project is providing the meds. She's really made it her mission to fight whipworms. Even though they silently afflict hundreds of millions of people, there's never really been a drug for humans that targeted this specific type of worm very effectively.
Neglected tropical diseases mostly have no market because it affects the poorest of the poor population. So we have to be quite creative when it comes to discovering and developing a new drug.
More often than not, that means getting some inspo from animal medicine, because a pretty good treatment had already been around for a while, since 2006, but only for cats and dogs. Emidepside was developed for the pharma giant Bayer by this guy, Achim Harder. You could say he knows a thing or two about worms.
This is a roundworm from cattle. This is the so-called heartworm. This is a roundworm in humans. Ascaris suum from pigs. And so we already have 4 different types of roundworm.
In the 1990s, he was asked to develop something that would work on worms building up resistance against existing medicine. So he looked to nature, where a lot of our drugs come from. Think penicillin or aspirin. Inspiration struck when a Japanese researcher told him about this plant, Camellia japonica. In its leaves, there's a fungus that produces a chemical substance.
And that penetrates the plant, goes into the root, and the compound is stored in the roots. And it can protect the camellia from soil nematodes.
Basically, the substance helps the plant protect itself from all sorts of tiny worms. Achim Harder thought to himself, if it kills worms in the soil, maybe it could kill parasitic worms in animals too. So he collaborated with Japanese chemists to turn the substance into a drug called emidepside.
And we quickly saw in our animal models that the compound works extremely well and on a broad spectrum. That's also important for marketing. We targeted the whipworm, hookworms, roundworms, and then a whole range of other worms as well.
And in 2006, this medicine containing emidepside went on the market for dogs and cats.
It's rare to be so lucky.
But back then, Bayer wasn't interested in testing the drug on humans.
That's a very, very difficult topic, because the primary goal is to make money. The market for pets is very big, so Bayer was able to make money there.
But anti-parasitic drugs for humans basically have no market. Pharma companies usually donate them, not a great return on investment. Ultimately, these companies need to make money. They're not philanthropists. So what has changed? Why is Jennifer Kaiser able to test emidepside on humans 20 years later? For one, there's more money in it this time round. A Swiss initiative to treat neglected tropical diseases secured significant philanthropic funding. And the US Drug Authority, FDA, is offering financial rewards to encourage researchers to develop treatments for these sorts of infections. Also, many parasitic worms are developing a resistance to the drugs on the market, so there's greater pressure to come up with new meds. In 2018, the conditions to look into emidepside for humans were finally right. Well, almost. Bayer was not fully on board and didn't want to hand over the drug to be studied just yet. So Jennifer Kaiser took matters into her own hands.
The quickest way was to obtain dogs and cats medicine from the pharmacy, and I had a chemist in the group, and she quickly extracted the active ingredient, and then we could run our assays.
Her persistence paid off. The results were so good they convinced Bayer. The company is now helping with the formulation of the drug, the data management, and getting it approved. When it came to testing the emidepside, Jennifer Kaiser knew where she wanted to do it, on Pemba, where she's been working with researchers for 15 years.
It's really a dream working in this environment.
And whipworms are everywhere on the island. The good news, the test found that the drug killed whipworm eggs in almost all of the participants' stool. Now the team is running another trial. It's still too early to analyse these new results, but the feedback from most locals has been positive.
Before taking the medicine, I had a bit of a problem with loss of appetite and often felt dizzy. But after taking the medication, I felt much better. Even though the medicine has caused some minor side effects, such as temporary blurred vision, I was generally fine. I don't have problems and the medicine hasn't caused serious side effects.
Researchers are prepping a final trial in the Philippines before submitting the drug for registration. If emidepside is approved, Bayer will most likely sell it at a social price instead of donating it. That means it will charge a low price that covers its production costs, a compromise between buyer and seller. There's a chance this approval could still come this decade, which would be a real breakthrough.
I couldn't believe it.
For me, it will be a good memory to see that my contribution to a new drug worked well.
It's probably the dream of every scientist.
But it's worth remembering, the drug that could improve hundreds of millions of lives was there 20 years ago. What was missing wasn't the science, it was financial incentive.
Growing vegetables in your own backyard, a dream for many city dwellers, and great idea in so many ways. Above all, it's cost effective and healthy. But what if your backyard is all concrete or tarmac? We go to North Central Nigeria to meet a retired gardener who's embracing a simple solution on our Doing Your Bit this week.
Jeffshi Wombish knows you don't need a big garden to live well. Thanks to their sacks, he and his son have fresh food all year round.
I grow them based on organic fertilizer. I don't use chemical fertilizer on them. It has been yielding very well.
Jeffshi Wombashi says he has more than enough to go round.
What I take delight in mostly is when someone comes and he's so desirous, I give out, assist families around. We don't have to go out there and buy something that has been chemicalized.
Farming in sacks is a smart way for people in urban areas to grow their own food throughout the seasons. Water from a well ensures irrigation for maize, carrots, spinach, and more during the dry season. The method is proven a lifesaver in uncertain times.
We are faced with a situation where a lot of people have to flee away from their homes because of crisis and insecurity. So people in the urban areas need to begin to think about what we call the urban farming.
More and more people in northern Nigeria live in rural areas to avoid armed conflict as food prices rise. Urban farms like Jeffshi's fill a real need. With more support, it could help combat food insecurity.
The government can actually come into this and bring in professionals to train people in this type of farming, can encourage them by giving them seedlings, teaching them this practice, making them see that these things that they feel is difficult to do are things they could do in their convenience.
Sack farming has certainly worked out for Jeffshi Wombish and his family. He hopes more people will get into it.
So the advantage is that use the space that is available to you to farm whatever you intend to farm. What you feel will be immediate needs of the family. It will sustain you.
If more people turned to sack farming, it would alleviate the pressure on land use. Take Burundi. It is a small country. It has an amazing variety of birds with lakes and wetlands that provide vital habitats. But growing agriculture needs entails habitat loss. And hunters also put birds at risk of extinction. Now, local communities and conservation groups are now stepping in to protect them.
Bird Lake in northern Burundi, officially known as Lake Ruhinda, is a paradise for more than 180 bird species, including the great egret, the reed cormorant, and the African fish eagle. But their home is under threat from climate change, habitat loss, and poachers like this illegal fisherman. These men also used to hunt here. They show how they made snares from branches and cords. They haven't forgotten the craft, but today they are dedicated to protecting wildlife. Thanks to the training from the conservationists, I have changed the way I see birds. Today, I see them as part of myself. If I come across someone who hunts birds, I try to stop them or I report them to the authorities. Joseph Bizibungul heads one of Burundi's most important conservation groups. He may well be the country's chief bird protector. In training sessions, he reminds communities around Lake Ruhinda why it's vital not to disturb the birds or their habitats. Anyone who plants crops in the protected area harms not only nature, but themselves. The message seems to be getting through. In recent years, we've faced disasters linked to climate change. It stopped raining here, while other communities still had rainfall. That led to severe famine. Our job is to educate people about protecting the environment. We show them concrete examples, places where nature has been destroyed. That helps them understand that if the environment isn't protected, they too will suffer the consequences. People around the lake mainly grow maize and rice. To protect the birds, they've had to make tough sacrifices. A legally defined 50-meter wide buffer zone was created around the lake. In this zone, there can be no farming or tree cutting. Families had to be relocated, a drastic measure as land is scarce. The cleared areas are being reforested to create new nesting sites and restore ecological balance. When we learned they wanted our land to plant trees, it was hard to accept. We grew sweet potatoes and bananas there, especially in the dry season because the land is close to water. Imagine someone who owns less than a hectare of land. If you take away 50 meters, that can be very frustrating. That's why many people, sometimes out of desperation, return to the buffer zone to cut trees or farm despite the ban. Farmers need alternatives. One option is ecotourism. Visitors are taken out on boats like this for bird watching, but so far, only about 500 come each year. More alternatives are needed for people to make a living. We need to increase the number of agroforestry trees, provide people with livelihoods like fruit trees or small livestock. And also look for other financial partners to help strengthen and empower the communities. Some former poachers are now paid biodiversity wardens. In the past, they hunted crowned cranes, one of the most endangered species at Lake Ruhinda. The birds were sold at high prices to hotels and wealthy clients. Today, these same men earn extra income from protecting them. They report disturbances and guide tourists to the best viewing spots. We now also give training sessions in our communities. We try to raise awareness so people understand it's forbidden to hunt crowned cranes or do anything that might scare them or drive them away. I've come to understand that it is possible to live in harmony with birds. If you want to, they flee because people disturb them. But if you offer them peace, they become friendly towards us too. The island in the middle of Lake Ruhinda is the heart of the protected area. Birds live here, but many bird species also nest or rest here, as long as they are given the peace they need.
Well, we have come to the end and we hope you have enjoyed the show. We'll be back in a week's time with a bunch of inspiring stories. Well, till then, it's goodbye from me.
You can find all our stories and much more on our website. Let's stay in contact. You can write to us and share your thoughts at eco@dw.com.